Invited me here to share my mission journeys. I'm very honored, thank you. People always ask me, first of all, how did you get started? Well, before that, I suppose I should have to tell you a little bit about myself. My parents never attended church. Therefore, us kids didn't go to church either. When I lived downtown in Milwaukee, one of my friends invited me to go to the Methodist church to the MYF. Remember MYF? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I went occasionally to the MYF. That's because if we were naughty at home, my mom didn't let us go. So, occasionally. Well, I finally got baptized. I was about 14 years old, I think. We moved away, no church going, got married, had kids, had them baptized. I mean, I'm moving through this fast, okay? But I never got involved in the church, so I didn't know what mission was, or I don't know whether I knew what Jesus was. Well, when I got married in 1982 and moved to Brown Deer, I found the United Methodist Church of the Good Hope. Here I was befriended by Catherine, who got me involved in the church and into United Methodist Women. Then she talked me into attending School of Christian Mission. Any of you know about that? No? Oh, School of Christian Mission. All the Methodist churches have it. You said you
For United Methodist Women, yeah, they
Yeah.
got that.
yeah, it's
Oh, okay.
through the church too, yeah, but,
Women's groups?
okay. Then she talked me into attending School of Christian Mission, and it was in Appleton, which was quite a long drive for me. She said, someone from our unit has to go. And since you aren't working, we elected you to go and we'll pay your way. What is this? Well, anyway, I did go. She talked me into going, and I'm driving and I'm scared. Why am I going to mission school? I don't want to go to some faraway foreign country and preach to heathens. Well, I've been on 6 of the 7 continents, about 20 different countries. So I guess it did happen. I did get away from home then. The first mission trip I went to was about 1992. What happened was I attended a UMW conference in Chicago, and getting acquainted with all these ladies you don't know, they start asking you questions, So they're asking me all these questions. And they found out that my father was from the Philippines. And they tried talking me into going on a mission trip to the Philippines, which was sponsored by the United Methodist Church that year. No, I don't even like traveling this far away to Chicago. The second time they asked me, I said, why would I go so far away from home to a place I don't even know? And they tried a third time that weekend. They talked about an opportunity for me to visit my father's homeland.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
So I said, maybe. Maybe. I did not go because I wanted to be a missionary. I just went. I expected to find an idyllic, green, tropical island with blue waters, but instead I found much poverty. Many street children, families living in the garbage dumps, in makeshift shacks made out of scrap cardboard and wood and stuff. And the place was called Smoky Mountain because of the fumes that rose out of the garbage when the garbage was dumped there.
Did your dad not tell you about that?
Pardon me?
Did your dad not tell you about that part? No. He told you it was all like pretty beaches.
Okay, interrupt. My father came here in 1929. I'll try to cut this short, but it's long. Married a Milwaukee German lady. She did not let him talk about the Philippines. You gotta be American. You can't talk with an accent. You got. So Daddy never told us anything about the Philippines. Because whenever he did, Mom shot him down practically. Well, that's what life was when all the immigrants were coming in those days. That you have to hurry up and become American. heard some stories. But some of things like this he didn't tell us. Well, that was right in the capital of Manila. It just devastated me. But through my travels in other countries, third world countries, this is common in a lot of other countries. But at the time, I thought, oh, this is what's happening here. But it happens in a lot of countries. Well, when we were there, we visited hospitals and schools and other centers, which a Methodist church had started many years before that, because these places were already outdated and obsolete. We visited many. That's what I like about the United Methodist Church. It's so connectional. Look, here I am in this foreign country from Wisconsin. Oh no, you know, that was a joke. But here I am in Florida from Wisconsin, and I can connect with all you wonderful Methodist people. And so whenever I travel all around, I do try and find a Methodist church. But when I was with the missions, that was our point, to go to the Methodist churches. So all of these hospitals and stuff were very obsolete. But we did get to talk to the bishop about the plight of the people and what we as Christians can do to help. Well, that was my first mission trip, and I probably thought my last mission trip. Oh, what a culture shock. Really. I don't want to think about it anymore. Okay. In the early 2000s, I was a member of the Wisconsin Conference Mission Committee, where we kept track of the missions and where they go and when they're here and set them up and things like that. But there's also a subcommittee called the Ambassador Program. Back in those days, the church was supposed to have a country every year that they focused on. And that's what that was about. That's why I went to the Philippines. And the United Methodist Women, they centered the School of Mission around the country stuff. So, on the mission program, they paid for 3 people to go on the mission thing. Lots of people didn't go, so I got a chance to pick up on 3 different times. They expected us when we got back to it wasn't just a free trip. We were supposed to set up programs and talk to the different churches and everything about it. So I did a lot of talking back then. And that was 30 years ago, and I can't talk as well now, so I'll do the best I can. So I took advantage of that. The first one I went to was to Cambodia, Vietnam, and Laos. I crossed a lot of this stuff out and added things. So. The first time I did this, my daughter was there. And when I got into some of it, I started crying. She said, "Mom, cut that part out. No crying aloud." But I might cover a little part of it.
There we go. That was weird. I just disconnected and reconnected.
We were always very welcomed in Cambodia. Oh, those people are so friendly and so welcoming. We visited a number of the churches. They're all very crowded. Many children in church, and everyone carries a Bible. And you can see that they use it because there's highlighting. From where I was sitting, I could see that's all the highlighting in the Bible, so you know that they've been used. They had many classes for children, youth, women, men, and baptism candidates. I attended the women's Bible study. There were lots of questions, and naturally we did this through an interpreter. You know, none of us spoke their language. So most of these places I'm going to, when I say we talk about something, it's through an interpreter, okay? So the women were asking us a lot of questions, and we were asking them, and one thing I wanted to know, what were you before you became Christians? And they were all Buddhist. And I said, why did you change? Because of the music and the hope. I don't know how much you know about history in that country, but Pol Pot came through there in the 70s. You know about Pol Pot?
I heard about him, that's about
Yeah.
it.
Well, he came through and he killed all of the skilled and artistic people. He was worse than Hitler. And there's these devils out there all over. So there's no dancing or singing in Cambodia for a long time. If you've seen any pictures, you know, they have these fingernails and they do this really beautiful, beautiful, beautiful dances. We visited a boarding school called the Cambodian Christian Arts Ministry. They started with 45 disadvantaged children and young people to help revive the beautiful art of the traditional dance. This was a boarding school, and they only took in street children and disadvantaged children, and nobody could buy his or her way into there, and they do have a long waiting list. Well, this is quite a few years ago. I'm sure they're going real good now. They have academic training and vocational training in the arts. They never charge for all the programs are based on the Bible. Their dances told stories of the creation, the Lord's Prayer, God's kingdom, and they praise the Lord in song and dance all the time. Oftentimes non-Christians would see or hear about Jesus. What a wonderful way to evangelize through music and dancing. This is about Pol Pot invaded Cambodia in 75 to 79. He cruelly tortured people and massacred the people. It was worse than the genocide by Hitler. A quarter of the people, 2 million people were killed. Pol Pot was overthrown in 1979 by Vietnamese troops. While we were there, we were taken to the Genocide Museum, which I'm not going to explain any more about that, and the killing fields. At the killing fields, you can see bone fragments and teeth fragments on the ground. Katie and I were there, and we thought we could hear the kids cry. Mommy, help me. Why are people like that? They were so cruel. Well, when he left Christianity, and a lot of missionaries went, and Christianity has blossomed since then. It's growing by 6% each year, and it'll take over Islam as the second largest religion. In the churches, they always had testimony. You know, people get up in front and they do that. Lots of them, almost every time we went to church. So I gotta tell you about this one woman. They go out in 2 or 3 and go out in the countryside and talk about Christ. So these ladies, they were out at the farm to evangelize, and they talked on the scripture, Luke 10:19. Anybody know it?
Sorry.
Lord, even the demons and snakes will submit to you if you believe, okay? Well, that night, after they had done all this preaching, they slept on the floor next to each other. The first woman felt something run over her, something on her leg, and she brushed it aside. Second woman, the same thing, and she, you know, something runs across there, get rid of it, you know. Next morning when the host came in, he saw a poisonous snake coiled up in the corner. The farmer and all his household workers became Christians. I'm glad I don't have to witness like that. Vietnam. This is the same journey. Christianity there is considered to be a cult. So it was a little more dangerous for us there. You go to church and you're registered. The churches have to report to the government who's there, what they did, and all that stuff. So we were under surveillance over there. But we were able to meet with a couple of groups of Christians outside of the church. We met one evening in a hotel type thing for dinner, young and old. We were happy that they came to visit. They were happy that we came to visit them. So with an interpreter, they asked many questions like, what is your church like? Can you go to church whenever you want to? Do you have church for children? What can we do for the poor people here? And much more. They can't remember everything. But after the meal and the visit was over, everyone just disappeared very fast. Unlike us, we'd sit around and talk, right? But they just disappeared because this was an illegal gathering. We later heard that the waiters had to be screened and the guards were bribed so that we would be safe there. We also had another meeting with a group of Christians, and this pastor was jailed for 12 years. There's dangers of being a Christian in that country. And I looked it up, it's still much like that today, where Cambodia, Christianity has flourished. In Vietnam, it's still pretty much undercover. But we were able to share Christianity with many people in Vietnam. That gave us lots to think about. We are so blessed to be able to worship and sing and share our Christian faith. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Excuse me. Don't show that to Kathy. Cut that out. That wasn't bad. Then we went to my next call was to South Korea. They wanted people to teach English to the children in the United Methodist Church. I'm not a teacher, but they said they'd have curriculum and everything. So I thought, oh, I can do that. I'm always ready to try anything, whether I know it or not. About 6 people went. They put in different churches in the country, but on the weekends we got together and did some sightseeing. I had about 15 kids, about like that. Don't ask me the ages. And there's no curriculum, so I used the Bible stories, because if they were going to church, they knew the Bible stories. So we worked on that, and except the pastor, he would come in during the day and start talking to kids in Korean. And from what I heard later on, the kids were telling him how boring this was and everything. I said, well, at school, what do you expect? So I don't know whether I made an impression or not, but I did ask, why are we teaching the children English for such a short time? They aren't gonna learn anything, really? You teachers, they don't learn anything, do they? They said they're gonna hear it, and it's gonna be the language, the worldwide language, and they're gonna already hear that this is what they started. So last day, when we had the mothers over there, we did the story of Noah's Ark. It was fun because the kids had some squirt bottles for the 40 days of rain. So I guess they had a little fun. Korea is a beautiful country. I really liked it over there.
That was South Korea.
South Korea. Yeah. In 2003, my trip was to Mexico. I did another trip to China, but that was nothing like our mission trips. So we were down there. The Christianity is not very popular down there because they are all Catholics, and to them, Catholics and Christians are different. They really are, yes, down there. And we found some places that, because we were Catholic, it didn't work out too good. Like trying to get on the train, the whole group there trying to get on the train. But they didn't want to give us tickets because we were Catholic. I mean, we weren't Catholic. And it finally, eventually got straightened out. We finally got that right. We visited a number of churches, and many of them were outdoors. Lots of singing and praising God, and the weather was good. One day we helped serve sandwiches out in the park to the poor people and the homeless people. Did you ever go to a restaurant and have lunch with a complete stranger? Try it sometimes. Took me to a place I never thought I'd be. That's what happened to me. At the annual Wisconsin conference in 2004, I went to the cafeteria for lunch. And it was very crowded. You're waiting and waiting. Finally, a table was available, and I invited the woman behind me who was waiting to join me. We had good conversation, getting to know each other and what we do. She ran an English immersion camp in Bolivia. And since she found out that I had been director at Pine Lake Camp for over 20 years, she invited me to go and be the director of her camp. Naturally, I said yes. So 2005, we did that. The altitude was so high in La Paz that I was sick most all the time. But by the time we got off the plane, I could feel it. It was really terrible. So I struggled. It was a struggle. Those kids were harder to handle than my cognitively disabled kids at camp. They were. And our lodging was on the 3rd floor.
Oh.
The ground level was too high, and I had to
Yeah. Wow.
Well, it was an adventure. In 2007, I went to Tanzania. Now, this was a self-indulgent trip. We went on a safari. Very it cost a lot of money. But as I travel around the world, I keep looking for churches. And we're in the bus, I'm looking for churches, and all of a sudden it dawned on me, hey, their churches don't look like our churches, so stop it. Well, I finally found out that there are Christians there. Whenever I go any place, I say, what's your name? Don't I?
Yes.
So I found out that one guy, his name was Joseph, so we talked about Joseph in the Bible. And what's your name to another guy, and he was Jacob. And we talked about Jacob, and I met Grace, and I sang, Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
So that's a little way to share your Christianity. I was going to tell you about an angel. Okay, in 2007, I was going to go. Some of these trips were kind of close together. 2007, I was going to go to Laos, and that trip got canceled. So I was looking, I was ready to go. You know, I wanted to go someplace. So I called around in a different church, had a mission going to Honduras. Can I go? Well, it's only the church people. Well, anyway, I got in on that one anyway. It was just a church group that went, you know. I was an intruder, I guess. Oh, we had a great time. Yeah. They always go down, they had a medical group because they had a couple of doctors in the church and some pharmacists stuff. But this year they were gonna add on a sewing group. I said, I can do that. Okay, so now they have their sewing group, and the first year that I was there, it's in the big church, they had the pharmacy and the doctor in one corner, the sewing group in another corner, and outdoors. Guess what they had? Vacation Bible School. So they had all the kids outdoors. This church that we went to was up on the mountain. So when they find out that the mission group is going, word goes out all over. So many, many, many people come. They're standing in line to go to the doctor, so they bring all the kids. And there's, I think one year there was about 50 kids there at Vacation Bible School, just singing and playing and having a good time. So now we're adding the sewing group. We got sewing machines and fabric and patterns and notion and all this stuff to carry down there. That year we had a hotel in Donnelly, and to get up on the mountain, we used not a big bus, big van. What do you call these? Not a bus. Not a, I don't have the word, a big van with a lot of people, 8-10 people. So we're going up this mountain. The roads were this narrow.
Yeah.
No, I guess they were a little wider than that. But on this side, the mountains up there.
That's a sign down.
On this side, there's nothing there. Which side of it was really scary. You know, one year we got stuck in the mud and they had to back up. They couldn't go any further. So it was an exciting ride. You know.
Says the woman who did the Iditarod.
Well, anyway, Cindy was our driver and God was our co-pilot. Well, that worked out fine for me. I liked that trip quite a bit. The traveling was much easier. It was only 6 hours instead of about 20 across the ocean. Same time zone. That was better. Oh, and the electricity worked too, so that was good. We had nice beds to sleep in. We had showers and good food. Much better than I was going across. And I did this a number of years, and what's nice about it, you know the people. Oh, they welcome you back so much. You know, waiting for you and giving you hugs and everything. I had gone there about 6 or 7 years ago. At first we started with the sewing machines, patterns, simple things to sew for the people. And sometimes the kids came in and wanted to sew too. Each year was more interesting because sometimes we got different people learning to sew. And then we got a couple of years in Tegucigalpa, which was a main city, which was a little harder to get around in. The last year that I was working there, I was working with a young lady that went to the bilingual school. So she and I could talk. We sit and talk in between a lot. During our break, she wanted to visit with me, so we sat and we talked. She asked me lots of questions, like, where do you live? So I drew out a little bit of a map that showed how far away I was from her. She asked me about my family. How old are you? I told her how old I was. Then she wanted to know where else I'd been going to on mission. So I told her about that and what did I do. So we talked quite a bit. And a little later she said, I want to be like you when I grow up. I said, what, an old lady? She says, I want to be a missionary like you. The last year we were up there too, we were talking about, we weren't just doing the sewing. We did a lot of school uniforms because they have to wear uniforms, so now they can make the uniforms, they can sell it. And we're talking about setting up a store, how they can do this on their own, and for 2 years we worked on doing things like that. So they got their store going. So after a number of years, like I said, I've been going there about 6 years. Politics got bad, and things started getting bad down there, and you could hear gunshots all around. But what the heck, I even hear that in Milwaukee. No big deal. But you don't have to travel to foreign countries to do mission. As Amanda was saying, there's a lot of mission around here. There's a lot of mission in your local area. I know that your church does a lot of missions, and so do I. Actually, if it were not for the church, there wouldn't be missions, so you need the church too. My biggest local mission is camp, which I've been doing for over 30 years. I do a camp for cognitively disabled young people. It's usually the end of June. I'll be going again this year. I can't play kickball and go swimming with them, but I do Bible study 3 times a day, because we've got 3 groups that rotate, so I do Bible study.
How do you get because my school has a intellectual disability self-contained unit. So how would they be able to go there?
Does Methodist Church in Florida have camps?
Yeah.
Well, you sign up through the church somehow.
Okay.
It's an overnight camp. They go
They go overnight?
yeah, it's for an entire week,
Yeah.
so the parents drop them off, and then they pick them up. And
Thank you, Miranda.
Yes, and the counselors are volunteer, and they stay on site with them.
Yeah, so it gives the parents a break.
Yeah, and the parents say, this is the only week we ever get to be alone. Sydney's mother says, that's the week I can clean her room, she doesn't let me get to.
Right. What's the age,
Stuff like that.
what's
All
the
age.
age
I
range?
mean, what's the youngest, Grandma? The youngest age? It's all age,
Well,
but
it depends on, our camp when I started, it had little kids, then they had teenagers, then they had adults, then they had old people. And somehow, yeah, they let me in, don't they? Somehow the little group is not anymore, don't get enough volunteers, I guess. So I was in the youth, and I've been with them, these young kids I've been with all these years, so it's really an adult camp. We've named the camp Playa, Playa, Pine Lake Active Young Adults. They have to be able to take care of themselves.
Okay,
True, we've sent some home that couldn't, that it wasn't.
yeah, ours.
But, and this isn't overnight, Sunday through Friday.
Right.
But Easter Seals have camps, and there's some other organizations that have day camps.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'll look into that. And it's just intellectual disability, not autism spectrum?
I think you have some I think there are some autistic.
Cause we have a intellectual disability unit and an autism spectrum.
Yeah, I believe there's some
Oh,
autism.
yeah,
Yeah, you have, from what Kathy's told me, you have
Yeah,
some autistic.
Okay,
but they have to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, we don't wipe their bottom or feed them, or, I mean, we aren't nurses,
right,
so. But if your child came and he's in a wheelchair constantly and needed care, they'd have to come with, I mean, we've got it open, they can come with a caretaker.
gotcha.
And if there isn't a mission there that you want, if there's something that you see that's needed, you can always open a mission. We opened the Hmong House of Good News in Milwaukee for elderly, for the Laos people that came over, couldn't speak English. They're old people, and they can't go to the senior center because they don't speak English. So we opened up the Hmong House of Good News. We got a Hmong cook, and I don't know, we survived it real good, and I was on the board of directors. President, I didn't know how to be president, but I don't know, I get hooked into all these things. And so we ran that for 5 years, and we outgrew it because there were no new Hmong people coming in, and these were taken care of. Well, I got one story to end with here. I also do Vacation Bible School and Awana and different things. I don't do as much as I used to, but I stick with that. This last summer, Vacation Bible School, on the last day I had this little girl. How old was she
Yeah.
about that? I can't remember ages. In the last day of school, we were telling the story about Jesus, the guys that were on the boat and they're throwing their nets and there's no fish. So they were complaining, and Jesus from the shore says, throw it on the other side. There's no fish. Yes, throw it on the other side. So I threw it on the other side, and they come in with all the nets were full. So I had the kids, come on, pulled it at it. So 135 fish. I said to the kids, and what happened afterwards? What did Jesus say to Peter? 'Cause we have that story. Jesus said, do you love me? Do you love me? And he said, feed my sheep, right? So I said to the kids, where's the sheep? We pulled in fish. What do you do? What did the sheep say? And it's going bad. No. One little girl, now this is, said, Jesus wants you to tell him about Jesus. Tell him that he loves them. Tell him to feed his people and take care of them. This little girl.
Yeah.
Wonderful. What a way to share. I hope she'll be in my class next year. And if another mission trip comes up, I'd sure like to go if I can. These are some of the, if you want to pass around, these are some of the places I've been. I think I hit them all. Well, thank you.
Nice
Thank you.
job, Grandma.